But
Well,
he heard like cheap wine, which is about 2 grades lower than wine.
it is 10:33. We may as well start this meeting. Hooray! Welcome to the first koha-US General Meeting of 2025. It's a pleasure to see you all. We don't have a huge agenda today, this being the first meeting. I think it's probably already in the chat, but let me put it here again. And yeah. I'm Andrew, your koha-US president for the year. That's a surprise too. That's strange. But felt like I should say something. Dang, y'all. We're running a thing. Okay, let's move into announcements. I have one announcement that I'm stealing from John. He was probably going to say it. He emailed that the 2025 membership emails have gone out. If you or the financially responsible person for your organization have not yet received a koha-US 2025 membership email, go dig in your spam folder because it might be there. Or if you don't find it in your spam folder, maybe message John because maybe it went lost somewhere or it didn't go to the person you expected it to.
There are any number of possibilities, of which Andrew highlighted the major ones. The third and final one, and this is true for at least one member, they have very zealous spam filters and it doesn't end up anywhere. And we've been able to mitigate that by using my work email instead of anything from the koha-US domain. But they went to your primary contacts. For most of us, that's you, because most of our members are single members for their institution. We only have maybe about 10 or 12, something like that, institutions with multiple members, and a number of them have actually already renewed. So if you were expecting a membership renewal invitation and did not get one, reach out to me at financialmanager@koha-us.org. We're actually doing pretty well for membership. To follow up on Andrew's announcements, we're at about 30 or so right now in terms of paid memberships, which is outstanding. And I'll be processing a few more when this meeting goes over into the bugs in general discussion area. So if you recently submitted your renewal form, or if you are a brand new member that was not a member in 2024, of which we already have a few people, you will be getting a membership invoice sometime today. And it's for those of you that are coming back to us, welcome back. For those of you that are new and looking at this, there might be a few people that are in the process of joining or are considering it. We hope you'll join.
I'm going to abuse my pulpit here to ask a personal question. Hey, John, who's the person at Bywater who got that email?
Cindy?
Makes sense. Okay, I will follow up with her.
Last year, it was shunted off to somebody else because Cindy was out and Bywater did not renew any of their memberships as a institution. There were a handful of people that joined individually, but this year's renewal list went back to Cindy.
I'll try to make that less of a hassle for you this year.
It would be appreciated.
Might have some small perks here anyway. All right, does anybody else have an announcement? George almost did.
I was going to say this is more like new business, but I can give everybody an update on the Koha Foundation when we get to that point. I forgot to suggest that it needs to be on the agenda. So,
yeah, George, do you mind if we just put you on like standing agenda item, even if that means
that'd be just fine until the steering committee's over. Yeah, that'd be just fine.
That's great. Yeah, even if you just pop up and say nothing has happened. All right. Other announcements? Do the announcement dance.
Just information. I think it's PTFS Europe is working on acquisitions 2.0, and I've been participating in some of their meetings as they're planning. So a heads up that that's happening, that there's new things coming in acquisitions. So it's pretty exciting.
I guess this is an announcement sort of, yesterday there was the first Aspen Discovery Koha users meeting. Aspen Discovery has user groups for Sierra and Symphony and all, or Circe Dynamics, or, all the different products that Aspen works with. And yesterday was the first time that they had a specific Koha Aspen users meeting. Bob and Ed are co-leading that group, even though Ed wasn't there, as he's not here today, apparently. But that's going to meet on, I think it's the second Tuesday of every month. And it's going to be added to the Aspen Discovery community calendar. So if you're using Aspen Discovery, I mean, even if you were to let me know that you were interested, I could find out some more information for you and get back to you. So george@nekls.org if you have any questions about that.
Does anyone have the link to the Aspen community calendar handy?
I do.
Awesome, because I was going to say I could find it, but then I'll spend the next half hour ignoring everybody while I look for that. So,
Or, I did. Where did it go? Yeah, I saw that Aspen for Koha users a little too late, but do intend to come to it future month.
I plan to come future months as well. It's been a
Thank you.
crazy week.
Oh, and Ed did let me know he would not be at today's meeting. He's doing some job interviews, trying to open his library. Fair enough. Now I've lost my agenda. Okay, last call for announcements. All right, moving on to new business. Let us welcome our new officers. The list is in there. And actually, we're missing a few of them today. Chip is not with us today, unless I have missed him. But we got a Wally. Hooray! Welcome, Wally, our incoming treasurer
Yay!
for us. And we are missing Ed, who, as mentioned, is off doing some job interviews. But we do have a Fred. Thank you for
Yay!
representing. That's the word I want. Representing our unsupported members for the year.
And
If you want
I'm
to,
still here.
yeah.
Yay!
If you are jealous of all of these accolades and cheers, you too
We're
could get
glad to
accolades
have
and cheers
you.
in future years. Keep an eye on this space for the call for nominations for officers.
We're glad to have you all.
Our next item of new business is just to reiterate that we have chosen a conference site for 2025. Let me enunciate very carefully. And that will be a town in Rhode Island that has a name, Providence, the one that people know in Rhode Island. Y'all, I can't tell you how much I don't remember the different parts of New England. Your states are very small and confusing.
Just remember, we are not part of New York.
you're part of
Renee,
Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, right.
Renee, do you have any wise or welcoming words as the representative of Ocean State?
Thank you, everyone, for voting for us. We're really looking forward to this, and we hope that everyone will enjoy it. Providence is a really amazing city, and there's a lot that goes on. So a lot of restaurants, a lot of activity. So I think it's going to be a fun time.
I'm excited. I've never been to Rhode Island.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward.
The dates for that conference, September 2 through 5. Let me say aloud, that lands it right after Labor Day. In
Yeah.
case that shoe hasn't dropped for anybody. It's, hopefully that is a convenient travel thing. But, we'll see.
It's convenient travel for me, but I'll tell you, I am in big trouble with my nephew because his birthday is September 1st. My birthday is September 19th. We always do a date on his birthday, and I'll be traveling. So he let me know that I'm in trouble.
Christy, can you add Georgette's nephew's birthday to the koha-US calendar so this doesn't happen again?
Thank
That
you.
might cause some confusion.
Yeah.
Just
His
bring
name's
them
Luke.
along.
Oh, okay. Hey, I may do that. Hey, that's a good idea.
Are you
I
the
like that
fun
idea.
aunt?
Oh, I am the fun aunt. You bet I am. You should
and-
see what he got me for Christmas. I'm having more darn fun with that thing.
Will you still be the fun aunt if you make him come to a koha-US conference?
Oh,
Yeah.
he'd have a great time. Well, he could spend time with my husband while I'm at the conference.
We
I
can
took
my
create
daughter-
a children's focus group.
Yeah.
I took my daughter to Round Rock in August and she loved it.
Yeah.
Let's see
How
it
old
happen.
is he?
He's physically 19, mentally he's 9. He has autism.
Ah,
So, yeah.
I don't know, ALA seems
But-
like a party conference.
Yeah, but he's absolutely the best kid in the entire universe. Just ask me, I'll tell you. Let me show you. He got me a launching penguin. It launches balls.
Oh, well.
yes.
So yeah, I'm the fun aunt.
Not that we're hurting for time, but it seems like launching Penguin Show and Tell is time to move to the next topic.
I was about to ask, do we have
Yeah.
a date yet for when you want proposals in, for when the committee wants proposals in?
I have a rough date. Let me pull that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Proposals for presentations or something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry.
And that date is
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the. Sorry, words.
The reason I'm bringing it up is because I did mention that there was talk about the Aspen Discovery Conference at yesterday's Koha Aspen meeting. And I said, we had this conference coming up and to be sure to look out for the dates because there were many people at the Aspen Discovery Koha group meeting that I've never seen here at koha-US before. So I tried to encourage everybody to come to that conference instead of the boring old Aspen conference that's going to be in like Nashville or wherever, This is much more fun to go to Rhode Island and hang out with us instead of all those Aspen people.
you're near Nashville, you can swing up to Mammoth Cave, which is the best trip ever.
When is the conference in Nashville? You piqued my attention there.
The Aspen conference is in October, I believe.
Oh, I'd have
Yeah,
to
there we go,
put
8th
that
through
in.
10th.
Might
You-
have to think about that one.
Do we run into any issues with why I'm wondering if we're going to dip in attendance because people may have to choose between two conferences rather than attending both. And I know we have a lot
I went
we
to
have a lot of
the
people that are onboarding to Aspen too.
I went to the Aspen conference last year in Golden, Colorado, and I was excited that it was a spring conference, and I thought, oh, this will be great. Aspen conferences will be in the spring, and Koha conferences are usually in the fall, and then they immediately scheduled this one for the fall. But there were a ton of people at the Aspen conference that don't use Koha. I would say a majority of the people there were not Koha users. There were
Right.
far fewer Koha users than I expected at the Aspen conference.
Hmm.
So I don't know if it will cut into us at all, or I don't know.
It'll be interesting to find out. Maybe at some point we blend them. Do a big conference for both.
That would be a possibility. I think that there's enough interest outside of Koha for Aspen, though, that I don't think it would be as attractive for the Aspen people, Aspen Discovery.
I think it would be,
Yeah.
I think it might be prudent though to see if when they're called for programs and potentially seeing if the people who are presenting, if they're Koha people, if any of them are presenting, if they would like to test their presentation with us the month before And therefore we get some good Aspen programming in where people would say, well, I'd rather go to koha-US as opposed to Aspen because it focuses more on Koha, but I'll get some Aspen content.
That's a possibility too. I did encourage everybody there at yesterday's meeting. I said, if you've never done a presentation before, koha-US is the place to do it because it's a very supportive community. Even if you fail horribly, people will not, be mean to you or anything like that. So at least that's been my experience. Nobody's ever been mean to me for the horrible things I've done.
Nobody's ever been mean to me either.
If
Nor
there's
me.
any feedback for the Aspen conference, I'm actually on the committee, so
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I have some hesitation about including too much Aspen content in koha-US stuff. A lot of our member libraries use Aspen, and very few of our member libraries are averse to like spending an hour hearing about some cool tool that they could maybe use someday. But there does seem like there would be a point where librarians who don't use Aspen would start to get cranky.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting several. I'm just suggesting, a really good content one, for an hour. I think people can suffer through. Because there are programs that are way into the weeds over my head that I'm perfectly happy to be part of, because maybe every now and then I'll get a piece of information that I can go and dig a little deeper. And if nothing else, they can get ideas from Aspen regarding how to organize lists or whatever the case may be in their own OPAC or whatever they're using. But I think if we don't offer something and we're competing with those with them a month later, I think it would be not a wise decision not to at least have one good Aspen presentation.
I did say when I said, there is this conference coming up, I said, if you're doing something cool that involves Koha and Aspen, I tried to make it, to make sure that it was about Koha. I certainly wouldn't go to an Aspen Discovery Millennium group or whatever other software and say, hey, come tell us about how you integrated ProQuest and Aspen and that had nothing to do with Koha. I wouldn't encourage anything like that. I wouldn't encourage a pure Aspen discovery thing. It would have to be about Aspen discovery and Koha to make it interesting for us.
If somebody's going there, and they have a poster session, I do have that introducing Koha poster. Anyone's welcome to.
One thing I had suggested to Aspen that might be good, for anybody that's interested in Aspen that's on Koha, is to know about, the things that you can and can't do between the two, because I know that there are a few things that don't translate over, especially like, we have some newer features in Koha OPAC that don't work in Aspen. The news doesn't translate, the lists don't translate, and so it's you can migrate the lists, which is nice, but they're not managed the same, which is, so there are a few things that we learned along the way, which would have been nice to know right out the gate.
Of course, all this brings me back to the initial question that started us on this roll. Do we have an idea when the proposals will be for presentations will be due?
Yeah, like mid-April, opening in mid-April, closing mid-March.
Okay, thanks.
And Chris said in the chat that call for proposals for AspenCon are open now. Chris, do you know when those close?
I think that's in April, beginning of April.
Awesome, thank you. And just calling out Eli's comment in the chat. Thank you for your feedback there. If anyone has thoughts about, I don't know, the appropriateness of Aspen content within koha-US offerings that you didn't feel comfortable offering in this venue, feel free to send those to me. Find me on Mattermost or email president@koha-US, or Andrew at Bywater Solutions is probably easier. Whatever.
I'm curious how many of the Aspen proposals are going to start out with this is our migration experience.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about there.
There were a few of those at the last conference, but not too many.
You think anyone would be interested in just a general introducing Aspen overview?
Probably. I mean, that's not a bad topic for the koha-US conference. Just a general, like, we use Aspen and this is what it looks like and this is what it does.
Yeah, like Eli, we're not going to be using Aspen because it's just too much for us, but
Yeah.
I'd like to know a little bit about it.
Yeah, and I could cover some of Christopher's, like, these are the system preferences that we thought were going to carry over into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we did, and Jesse and I did something similar to that, even at this past conference.
Yeah.
So
Other,
people are going to be able to start submitting presentation proposals around April.
yeah.
Okay, good. Because an April deadline strikes me
No,
down
no.
my heart.
not that soon. Starting in April. Okay, other conference-y thoughts or questions or concerns?
That's like 8 months away. I can't think that far.
No. And then we'll just ignore it until it's 1 week away, and then we'll all freak out. It always works. Well, my last item of new business is a general call for topic and guest suggestions for future general meetings. I enjoyed Bob's series of guests and stuff to talk about last year. I need to start lining some people up, which I probably should have done before now, but dang, y'all, that didn't happen. But yeah, if there are people you would love to see here or things you would like to hear addressed, I would love any suggestions y'all have, but like that's my job to come up with it. I'm just trying to make you do it for me. So no worries if you don't have a suggestion.
I have a suggestion right away.
Yeah.
I struggle all the time with serial prediction patterns. And
Ooh.
if there was somebody out there in the Koha-verse that would love to talk about that and how they do it, particularly for a public library, because I know there are a lot of academic libraries that do it with the very nice and neat way that academic publications come out, but for like popular materials, it's a little more fluid. So I would love to see a serials presentation in the upcoming year.
That's a good topic. No one is immediately jumping to mind as the serials expert who wants to talk about serials a whole bunch.
I would love to see discussion about serials in general, because I feel like the trend has been, ever since that we got on board with Koha, it was a little standoffish at the beginning. And, you know, as serials have been migrating more and more to electronic, you know, what is the future of serials? Is the module going to last another 10 years, or can it be revitalized and repurposed for something bigger, or something that, you know, outside of periodicals? You know, can we do something with it, or is it just going to be this thing that a lot of people aren't using, some people are trying to use, and is it going to get the attention it needs, you know, to develop more for those that are using it?
Give a 30-second presentation. Do you really need it? We don't.
Christopher, you're really making me want to structure this as a debate, like get the person who's going to argue for serials should be removed and the person who argues for serials should be retained, and we can just watch them. Because you're right, like it's a system that is really trying to interface with an increasingly chaotic publishing area, and it like the goal gets harder and harder every year. And I don't know if anyone is working really hard at making the code do all the things.
I'm wondering if anybody's using it in an unusual way, for for anything outside of the norm.
Yeah.
So something more unusual than serials.
Yeah, but like, is there somebody who's hacked the serials module to make, like displays or something? As much as Koha users love to take a module and use it for not what it was intended for, like, yeah, someone has done something interesting with serials, like tracking their seed library or something.
See, that seems like I don't know, a worthwhile transition, moving from a serials module to a displays module.
It's hard to
But
think of like what else you would use it for, because like its primary function seems to be something that you're getting delivered that you're expecting and whether or not you received it.
Yeah.
And other than periodicals, I don't know what falls into that bucket.
and why isn't it part of acquisitions?
Well, because it's not intended to be tracking the purchase of those magazines. It does interface with acquisitions. You can create an order from a subscription, but the order is like for the subscription, not for the items.
It does a little in that you're putting it connects to a vendor from your acquisitions module, but
It seems like it should be integrated into acquisitions, in my opinion. I mean, because you are dealing with vendors, and you are dealing with, receiving, and that's part of acquisitions. It seems like it would be a natural migration, that it's an element of that. It doesn't necessarily need to be its own module, but I don't know.
We've been using serials since we came on to Koha, and we have issues with the numbering patterns and stuff like that. And so I was just thinking this week, what if we stopped using it? So I think a lot of people are in that mindset now, like, is this really needed?
That's the thing that I hear about the serials too, is the patterns are really challenging.
I think they work really well if you only have one person using the module.
Yeah. Well, and if you are using it to track issues of a serial that comes on a reliable schedule with a reliable numbering pattern, which just is a much higher bar than it seems like it should be.
Juliet, how many serials do you have that you need to keep track of?
we have so many still. Over 100 titles.
Yep, we have 7. It's not worth it for us.
I would say we probably have about 50. So, and
We've never used the serials, but we have quite a few, but they have been dwindling down. But we still have a dedicated area for printed periodicals, so in both adults and children.
When I worked at Latah County Library, we had like 150 subscriptions spread out amongst 7 branches. And so having the serials module to do that with was really useful. But I'm not the one that set up or managed the serials module there. That was somebody else. And I don't even know anybody that works there anymore. There's only one person still there since I left. So I don't know who does that anymore.
Uh-oh, we're being transcribed now.
Well, thank you for that topic, Kristen. That's a good suggestion. Obviously, people have a lot of thoughts on it. Does anybody feel like volunteering to be a serial subject expert? If you wake up later and find that you have become a serial subject expert, feel free to email me. I'll probably send something out to the membership list generally, like asking for volunteers. But I'll also maybe hunt around the Bywater areas. See if I can trick somebody. Or even better, if you know a librarian other than yourself who you know is really good at serials, sell them out to me. And then I'll ask them to be on it, to come to a meeting. All right, that brings us into open discussion about bugs, issues, etc. Does anybody
Well,
have any issues or etc.?
Why don't I give an update on
George, sorry.
on the foundation? So for those of you that don't already know, there was the idea of a koha foundation that was discussed at the conference in Montreal in, what was that, September? And there was a steering group formed to create a koha foundation as a part of the Open Library Foundation, to be like a subunit of the Open Library Foundation is the best way to describe it. And so Andrew Auld from PTFS Europe is the chair of that committee. He posted an update to the community on November 2nd. And since then, we've only met 2 more times because of the holidays in November and December. The main thing that we talked about at the last meeting was we settled on a name for this foundation, which will be the Koha Charitable Foundation. And we kind of outlined ideas for a mission statement. We talked about we wanted the mission statement to be really simple, and it's along the lines of the mission of the Koha Charitable Foundation is to support and advance the Koha software and users throughout the world. So that's kind of where we are now. I should know the mission statement a little better than I just paraphrased it there because I'm the one that kind of crafted it. And I'm on the subcommittee that's putting together an actual document that will have the mission statement, and we're working on that for our next meeting, which will be in a couple of weeks on January 21st. And
It's
the
kind of a
reason
strange name.
the Koha Charitable Foundation.
Yeah, it almost makes sound. It feels a little misleading as to what the purpose is.
It was there were different ideas for the name, and that was the name that was agreed that everybody could agree upon. But the idea is that this isn't going to replace anything that already exists. It's not going to take over ownership of the code or take over the ownership of anything. It's going to be there as a way for the community to collect money, because right now the community doesn't have any way to collect and organize finances on behalf of the Koha project. You know, like when we did the conference in Portland and the conference here in Lawrence, there was no way to gather that money and collect it in a way that was tax exempt, tax deductible for the people that were donating money to that conference, except to give the money to koha-US, and then koha-US as a nonprofit. You know, so if PTFS wanted to donate money to the conference, they could donate it to us. It would be tax deductible, and then we, you know, we funneled that into the conference. So that's kind of the thinking behind having this isn't going to replace the way that Koha makes decisions, which is that's what a lot of like the MariaDB Foundation, that's what it does, is it controls the software. It controls the MariaDB software. So they make decisions, they hire developers, they do all this, you know, they set timelines. The MariaDB Foundation kind of has a lot of control over the software. And the idea was to have a foundation that is in control of the money, but not in control of the product. So it's a way for the community to organize its finances, not for a way for the community to organize itself around the foundation, or to organize the software around the foundation, which is what other software foundations tend to do.
George,
Does that make sense?
I thought am I confusing this with something else, or I thought the foundation was also going to help structure some of the behind the scenes stuff with the wiki and the management of Bugzilla and wiki and all that stuff, so there was a common place for that as well, because it was kind of all over the place, with who's managing what.
It's not just an issue of who's managing the wiki and who's managing the domain names and that, but it's who's paying for it.
Right.
For a long time, the Koha, one of the main Koha websites was hosted by NEKLS here at this office because, well, he asked the question and he just disappeared, didn't he? There are a lot of pieces of Koha that are financially controlled by individuals because of the big incident, that happened so long ago now. A lot of people don't remember it, where there was the LibLime issue, where LibLime tried to, gather a copyright around Koha and take control of the software and take it out of the open arena. And so that's what a lot of people, and so that's the reason why Liz, was paying for the domain name, and NEKLS was, paying for something else, and different companies were, different pieces of it were organized that way. And that's one of the things that this foundation gives the ability for, is for people to, for the foundation to help pay for those things and organize those things. But that isn't the only thing that it wants to do. So, but that's the name that's been settled on, as the Koha Charitable Foundation. What else was I going to say? We're working on a mission statement, and we're trying to work towards getting the stuff done to make this a 501c3 organized as a part of the Open Library Foundation.
So just to recap on Christopher's question, the foundation is eyeing up how management of things like the wiki and Bugzilla.
They're trying to organize the financial part of managing that.
Okay.
That's probably the best way to explain it. Not to be a matter of who's the person that allows new users in, and whose name is on the DNS, but who's paying for it is kind of what that's trying to organize. Does that make sense? Any other questions about this? There will be, Andrew is supposed to be releasing another update on what the committee's been doing sometime. I think the goal was by the end of the first week in January, which is coming up very quickly. So there might be something on the mailing list within the next few days. And if you don't have any more questions, then I'll turn it back over to Andrew, and we can start talking about more fun things.
I think this brings up a topic that I kind of started broaching with, I think you, Andrew, but that the board needs to discuss, because right now, CIN, our consortium, is hosting koha-US, and I do think that it's something that koha-US needs to start looking into in becoming more independent on hosting matters, because especially now, because I can't say too much, but there are things happening within CIN, and I don't know how that's going to affect koha-US at some point. So for koha-US to be a little bit more independent, not reliant on any one organization functioning well, would be in koha-US's best interest.
Christopher, can we get, sorry, can we get from y'all the cost? That may be already in the system somewhere, but what that cost is, and then is there anything that Andrew otherwise out there somewhere that someone else is hosting or doing for koha-US that, again, to become more independent, that we need to pick up on so that we can then look at it from a budgetary standpoint as the board and go from there to determine how that's going to affect our overall operating and how we can transition into becoming an independent group.
John and
yeah.
George, remind me, because I know that you guys may know this a little bit better than I do, but our domain, koha-US already, does koha-US deal with the domain itself, or is it the domain being handled through you, George, or what's happening with that?
So when initially Fred bought the domain name, like in 2017 or 2018, and then we transferred over to Google domain when we became a member of TechSoup and got the Google for Nonprofits. We moved that all over to Google domains owned by koha-US. Google domains doesn't exist anymore. I think they moved all of their domains over to like Squarespace or something like that. And so the domain should be under the control of koha-US, paid for by koha-US. And the Google for Nonprofits is all taken care of through TechSoup, which I set up, and I don't have access to that anymore. So it must have come under the purview of president or info or the admin.
It's probably
it's not something, once you're set up, so long as we keep our 501c3 status going, I don't think they ever asked for an update, or double check to make sure we were still a 501c3. But as far as I know, we're still a member of TechSoup, aren't we, John?
Yes, we are. And the maintenance of that 501c3 status is something that's never been questioned directly to us, though it would be possible for TechSoup to query the IRS to make sure we filed our annual filing with them, which we do. The management of TechSoup is probably under the treasurer email address, because it's the treasurer that initially paid the 2 bills that is part of TechSoup every year, which are actually coming up. The ability to get TechSoup for a discount, to which we pay an administrative fee to TechSoup, and then the actual Zoom subscription itself.
So koha-US is already budgeting the domain, it sounds like.
That is correct.
The website, I can tell you, is where we host. The pricing is negligible. I'll get the amounts to the board, but if we maintained the same server, or not same server, but same server, same host, and just split off into our own hosting system, it's not gonna be a huge impact, I can tell you that. So
the actual site is on WordPress, right?
It's WordPress, but it's on a host site called 2M Hosts.
Okay.
And CIN, we get the bare minimum server needs, and it's more than we've ever needed. And we have ticket systems, and it's really robust for the pricing. So
I guess what I'm trying to, part of what I'm saying here too is that I feel like John knows a whole heck of a lot. Christopher knows a whole heck of a lot. George knows a whole heck of a lot. But if aliens came and took them tomorrow, would we be screwed? And if that's the case, I think we need to have an operational manual for this sort of stuff, of like, if something were to happen to one of y'all, you retire, whatever the case may be, that we can have archived information as to know what to do, where to go, so that we can then do what we have to do to maintain things without any downtime. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's something that the board can discuss, and you know, and obviously would come my way to organize. I have organized some things as I had, you know, this has been my first year in admin, so you know, we'll continue to structure that stuff, and yeah, we do want to get into a place. You know, I have it set up so that the officers can get into the website where when they don't really need to, but they can. So, you know, there is that part of it, but there is more deeper stuff that we could document and establish, especially with the president, you know, as a fallback.
Christopher, if you need any help with that, I'd be glad to help.
Yeah.
I'm totally unwilling to help. If you need any help with that, don't ask me.
And a final bit about the domain name. Keep in mind, we did at one point have 2 domain names registered to us. There's koha-us.org that we continue to use. We also had control over koha-us.net, which by board decision a number of years ago was allowed to lapse and expire. It is the last time we paid for koha-us.org was 2020, and a 5-year renewal was purchased at that time. And as George mentioned, that was when Google was in the domain name business. In this year's budget is a line item to pay for the renewal of koha-us.org, which is slated to expire, I believe, sometime in June.
I think we bought a 5-year renewal because at the time there was talk of making the .org domains more expensive. And by buying a 5-year renewal, we avoided that possibility.
And that's generally true. I see that with EasyDNS, which is what DolNet uses for its domain administration. So we'll be exploring another multi-year just because it makes more sense. You pay a whole bunch for 1 year, but then you usually only pay 50% of that for a second and so on.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of moving my websites and email to a new system. Also some domain registrations. So I might have some horror stories to share if you're interested or want advice by someone who's been there.
But can you write a poem about it for us? Like an epic?
I can try.
I want to say this aloud in front of other people so they can help me remember it. The Koha-US president account does have a TechSoup account where Koha-US is a verified 501c3. I don't see anything about Google in there. I see our discounted Zoom accounts in the president TechSoup.
The Google, to get the Google, whatever they call it now, the Google for nonprofits, that's the way they verify that you're a 501c3 is you give them your TechSoup number or something like that. And that way TechSoup does all the verification that you're actually a 501c3 or 3C or whatever it is.
But that doesn't show up as like an order in TechSoup, like
no, it's not something we purchase through TechSoup. It's something that you use your TechSoup's ID number to verify with Google that you are in fact a registered nonprofit.
Like a
and it seems like
directory.
Yeah. It seems like there's a way to do some Microsoft stuff that way too, where you're not buying something, but they're using Microsoft. And it's been 5 years since I did that. So that was another one where the Microsoft would just use their TechSoup verification. Since they know you've got a TechSoup ID, they know TechSoup has verified your nonprofit status.
And TechSoup even seems to alter every year when I go through the process of renewing Zoom. There's something that's slightly different, and it looks slightly different when you look at the invoicing and payment history. So we'll see what fun challenges this year brings.
Okay, but overall, yes, the board wants to look at moving our website hosting off of CIN onto something we actually control and pay for, so that, like, I don't know, Christopher can retire someday. He might want to eventually.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that whoever takes over my position down the road will want to continue doing the volunteer stuff too. So
Weirdly. Okay, folks, it's 11:23. We officially have 7 minutes left in this meeting, and we're all great schedule sticklers.
I did put a bug in the sorry, I put it in a message to Wally. Let me put it into everybody. There is a bug I posted yesterday. I found in Koha. I was going through my news. Every month I cycle a new monthly topic of selection of books, and I was noticing that the filters don't work for news. If you have it on all, you see everything, but if you select a different location, everything goes away. It's really weird. So I filed a bug on that. Not a huge issue for a lot of people, but if you have a lot of news things, especially expired news things like I do, those filters help you find what you need rather than having to read through every single little thing. Filters are my friends. So and I don't know if that, I'm wondering if that filter broke when news was revamped in its own. Well, let's see here. No, I think HTML branched off of news, not the other way around. So I'm not sure what broke that, and I don't know if that's breaking somewhere else.
We used
If that filter's not working anywhere else.
Christopher, do you mean this one, this location, or the library's location?
Well, yours looks different. It's
Like you want to go up a level, right?
Yeah, it's back a page. It's
Yeah.
broken on my system too.
Yeah.
The
display
filters
location
on the
left.
left-hand
So
side
over
of
on the left,
page.
the display
Oh.
location, if you change that to like staff interface, change it to staff interface, and everything goes
I
away.
get you. I totally misunderstood what you meant. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
you're fine.
That's gross.
Based on Katrine's response in the bug there, you might want to put up a screenshot.
Yeah, it sounds like she maybe read it the way I did.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like if you edit the news item to tell it to display, to tell the news item itself to display somewhere other than everywhere, then the news item wouldn't display out in the interface. But you mean within that list of news things.
Yeah. But on the topic of news, I was just thinking, and since we were talking about Aspen earlier, I'm wondering if the Aspen community and Koha community would be interested in figuring out some plugins. Like it would be, right now we have in news, we can post to the staff side or the OPAC, but it has no impact on the Aspen side. And it would be nice if there was a plugin or something that would talk to Aspen and you could help manage the news from one location rather than having to go into two different locations. It would be nice if you could say, I want to add a Aspen news plugin, and then that would be another location that you could manage from there and post to.
I think the issue there is that the news items aren't in the API, in Koha's API. So there's nothing for Aspen to go and get. So that'd be probably the first step, is to ask the Koha community to find a way to create an API to get those new news items accessible through the API.
Which is doable, and like the Koha developers keep saying they want to know what APIs other folks want, particularly what APIs Aspen wants. So those are good requests to make known.
Yeah, news and lists it would be nice to be able to have some plugin functionality, not just for Aspen, but I could see that the potential for that with other discovery systems as well down the road.
Christopher, let me ask a question. So when we transitioned over to Aspen, we basically did away with the functionality of our OPAC. So we don't, like news, if it's to the patrons, we deal with it in Aspen. The only place that I post any news is the staff interface within Koha. So they're really two different audiences. And so when Andrew clicked right then, he clicked to staff and, staff and public, if you want to call it, or OPAC. We, like I said, we don't use our OPAC anymore. So why would there need, are you looking just to, why are you using that to reach out to the public if you, because you're moving or have moved to Aspen, correct?
Correct.
So why would you need to, so are you still using your OPAC?
Yes. Yeah. We we don't force our patrons to say, well, this is what you have now and this is all you get kind of thing. Especially right now, we're still, even though we have migrated our main catalog link over to that, we've let patrons know that still like the old way to have that. Plus, there's some functionality in the OPAC that you don't get in Aspen. And right now, we're going through a situation where we're having to have Bywater help us migrate or move some of our records around because our large print has been filed in the same bib record as our regular records, and patrons can't place holds on the large print only without doing an item specific hold. And so we're having to do some work there. So the Aspen side of that is kind of broke at the moment until we fix our records. And so this gives them another way to go about it for the time being, but also, it's for those holdouts. But, having the Koha OPAC, is not a horrible thing to have around. It's like, why not let patrons have a choice, in how they want to see things and do things. And so
we
makes more
we did
for
not
us to
give ours
manage.
a choice because we thought that would be confusing. And we also, and we're smaller, we're not a consortium, we're a smaller library. So that, and our bibs are different and whatever. So we just, the web address URL is exactly the same as it was for our OPAC, but it redirects to Aspen. And we just basically have turned off. I can behind the scenes get to it, but no one in the public, unless they have a direct URL to get to it, can get to it. And so that's why I was asking, because we thought it would be confusing to have options to patrons to which way they wanted to go. We just basically told them this is the new way the catalog looks. And
all of our defaulting goes to the Aspen catalog, but there are people that just don't like change, and so we try to help them through it as much as possible. But that being said, again, having that connection to the news, so that if we're posting something in Koha that staff and patrons need to know about, or even patrons. I mean, we're in Koha already. It feels a little weird to have to go into a whole nother system in order to make an announcement to the public when we could do it in one central place. And so that's why I kind of mentioned a plugin would be nice to talk to, you know, things. And so having that API, I think, is a good start for that.
Yeah, and that makes abstract sense. Like if an API existed for a third-party thing to grab that news from Koha, and Aspen has a place to show it that you can reasonably map, like this is where my Koha news should show up. Yeah, I like the idea of a unified control place for that, not having to set the message here and then set another message there. Yeah. But that does hit us in one of those interesting places where like there's probably some code that needs to happen on Aspen and some code that needs to happen on Koha, and it becomes a little bit more complicated. We're a little past time. So I'm gonna make a big administrative action and end this meeting. I'm kicking you all out. We do have the conference planning meeting immediately following this. Let's take 5 minutes and get a beverage and let your dog out or whatever you need to do. If you wish to attend the conference planning meeting, we'll see you here in
Okay.
5 minutes.
Don't forget to end the recording.
Thank you.
See you in a few minutes.
See you all later.
Thank you all.